It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Agronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belgast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again, time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 227. Tonight I'm joined by Ashgar.
Gotta catch 'em all.
Kodra.
I want to be the very best.
Valen.
Surrender now or prepare to fight.
We went all over the place in that one.
What are you talking about? We stayed consistently on Pokemon.
Yeah, it's true, but like different things in Pokemon. So I'm really freaking cold right now. Valen, are you also cold?
It was below freezing when I woke up this morning, so yeah.
So when I left work yesterday, it was roughly 50 degrees. And by the time I made it home, it had dropped like 10 degrees. And when I went to go get donuts this morning, it was like 19 degrees.
Yeah, it's not right.
No. We completely skipped like fall and got winter. Anyway.
We got about a week of fall here.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we probably did too, yeah. But it went from like 70 degrees to 50 degrees and then to the teens. So we kind of skipped over Deltarune last week. Like, we really didn't say a lot about it.
Are we supposed to talk about it?
Kind of like Toby Fox's marketing attempts of it.
Yeah.
We said it exists.
Does it really need to be marketed if it's a free game?
Yeah.
We said it exists and that you should go play it, and I hope many of you did.
It's only been out for a week and it's been out for 10 days.
It's not terribly long, so it's super weirdly packaged. That's probably the most eye-popping thing about it is as soon as you start installing it, you're installing like Windows 98 style install shield on which I haven't seen in probably 3 to 4 years.
The sound drivers from my motherboard keep coming like that.
And it has an EULA, which is you accept everything that happens from here on. So already it's got that Toby Fox feel to it. And it's really interesting. So one of the things that you notice pretty quickly is one of the things that made Undertale great is that you could your actions could wildly change the course of that story. And that's a very important part of Undertale, and it's very much not an important part of Deltarune. And the game wants to let you know that very, very explicitly up front. It's in that way, it's kind of a different game. It's looking to tell a more linear story, but the humor is still all there. The character designs are still all there. And it's what I would consider a pretty amazing evolution of the battle system of Undertale. Because whereas Undertale, you are the lone human, in Deltarune, you have a party that you are fighting with. Sometimes they'll even do what you ask them to. So it still has like the same act mechanic where you can choose to be like fight everything in your path, or you can choose to try and puzzle your way through and get people to like submit peacefully. It's less of a big decision between those two in this one, but your various characters have the ability to act and to ask other characters to act in specific ways to try and solve the puzzles, or you can have those characters either fight or cast spells, and some of the spells are like healing spells or pacify spells that knock creatures out, and you earn this resource by close calls in the bullet hell environments.
If you're familiar with bullet hell games that give you rewards for like grazing or scraping, it's like that.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get close to the attacks without actually running into them.
But unlike bullet hells, it doesn't immediately stress me out when I'm doing this. Because I know, well, one of my big complaints about a lot of bullet hells is if I take a hit, that's it.
That is kind of the standard.
Which is not the case here, and it makes it for a more forgiving and fun narrative game. it is a demo. It is only a partially completed game. If once you complete it, I recommend you go to Toby Fox's Twitter and download his preemptive frequently asked questions, where he wrote the frequently asked questions like a month before he announced that this game was coming out, because it gives a lot of his thought processes and where this game is ultimately going, and shows a lot of his thought process, which I think is really interesting. Like, one of the big issues is, by himself, he is completely convinced that he can't do this game. So he has to put a team together if he's going to do it. So that'll be interesting to chart this course. I don't know, have either of you guys played it yet?
No.
I started it, but I haven't gotten very far. At least I don't think I've gotten very far.
Like, part of me just wants to wait until it's done. Eventually.
That's fair. There was a point that Tam and I talked about that was very interesting. This game is explicitly not part of the Undertale universe. It just features all of the characters from Undertale. And some new ones. But, like, all of the characters that you are identified with in Undertale are in this game. It's sort of like a fully accepted alternate universe of Undertale. Like,
I mean, if it wasn't Toby Fox making it, it could be a fan game.
Alternate timelines.
It would absolutely be a fan game. I don't even think it's supposed to be alternate timelines. Like, it's more just alternate universes. Like, I love these characters. I want to do something more with these characters. It was really interesting because he specifically says, like, I don't have the words to describe what this type of game is. Which is sort of something I know Tam resonated with, and when he's back probably next week, I'd love to give more of his thoughts on it. But, like, the idea of, I have all of these cool characters that a lot of people have attached to, and I want to tell a different story with them, without any of the baggage of the previous story. And the comment that he would make is, this is actually a lot more common in Japanese media, where you have a more fully acknowledged fan works culture, where people can just be like, oh, I'm going to tell the same story, just move my characters from here to here.
This is why there are a million Toho games, most of which are not made by the original creator. He's involved in the bullet hells, and he's involved in the fighting games. And then all of this other stuff, the Mega Man-like games, the various dungeon crawlers, everything else, those are all fan works using the same characters.
But they are acknowledged as more than just fan works? Or are they just simply, like, considered derivatives by the people who play them? How legitimate are they considered?
They are not considered to be, like, main series games, but they are considered to be Toho games. Like, even some of the weirder ones are starting to make Steam now. Like, the Bullet Hell spin-offs are starting to make Steam, which is weird to me.
Like, fan works in the Bullet Hell style of a already Bullet Hell game?
Yes.
Using the same characters?
Yes. The one I'm thinking of is Fantastic Denmaku Festival, which is a sort of remake/alternate telling of the first Windows game in the Toho series. And this is a completely legitimate game using the Toho characters, and it's on Steam. This is not really a thing that happens with works in here.
Yeah, it's very much not a thing that happens in Western media, which is...
because they get shut down.
The closest thing I can think of right now is Sonic Mania.
Yeah, but isn't that, like, doesn't that come from a Japanese company, or the...
I mean, yes, but it's not from Japanese creators.
Yes, but the parent company is Japanese, and so maybe this is more understanding to them.
That's fair.
Like, is it literally just, boy, America's, and by extension, Western culture's copyright laws are super boned right now?
Yes.
I mean, they are.
I just don't know if this is, like, a direct line consequence of that.
I mean, Japan has real copyright laws, just they treat fan works differently than Western media does.
Yeah, but that's where I'm like, these people are able to sell their fan works.
I mean, I feel like the closest that we've ever gotten to that is Final Doom, which was effectively a curated pack by id Software of some of their favorite like user built levels. sold as a semi-cohesive game.
Yeah, but I'm also curious, A, who was making the money there? My guess is it was id and not the creators.
From what I understand, they like licensed them from the creators, so they weren't just like repackaging them, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm curious about that story. I've never actually heard about it. But yeah, alternate universe Undertale characters telling a very different story, very cool battle system. Recommend checking it out.
Okay, so looking it up really quick. TNT Evolution was the name of Final Doom originally, and it was like a collaborative thing from a bunch of WAD makers. However, at some point, id Software acquired the game and then released it as Final Doom. So it looks like they bought it from them. But anyway, that's the only thing I can think of in my gaming history where like a fan project has been released as an official thing.
Yeah, the other example I'm thinking of is also Japanese media. It's Capcom, who decided to officially support Street Fighter vs. Mega Man as a real thing, which, if you're not aware, was a Mega Man-like game where you fight Street Fighter characters.
Like the robot bosses are Street Fighter characters?
Yes.
That's not what I was expecting when you just said that title.
Yeah, I assumed this was going like, Marvel versus Capcom, but with just Capcom characters.
Sure. I mean, that's called Capcom Fighters Megamix, and I think that exists.
Yeah, that's why
I'm not surprised.
That's what I thought we were talking about.
Yeah, that doesn't seem to have any of the Mega Man characters in it, though.
Yeah, I got my wires a little crossed there. Capcom Fighting Evolution was the release that just had Capcom characters in it, and I don't think Mega Man was in that.
Weirdest game that's a crossover of Capcom things that I can remember playing that had Mega Man in it was Ken and Spike, where you had a couple of Street Fighter characters like Mega Man. I forget who else was in that game.
Oh, this was a Dreamcast thing.
Yeah.
No wonder.
Arthur from Ghouls and Ghosts, Baby Bonnie Hood from Darkstalkers, Cammy from Street Fighter 2, Charlie from Street Fighter Alpha, Mega Man, and Shiba Shintaru from Three Wonders.
What the hell is Three Wonders?
An old Capcom CPS system game that never got released over here.
Got it.
Like, I only know about it from CPS emulators. So, another game that I think we partially talked about, but you had more to say, is The Messenger, Kodra.
So, The Messenger is a cool little Ninja Gaiden that then becomes a Metroidvania game. Well, I shouldn't say Ninja Gaiden. It looks like Ninja Gaiden, but it actually plays well, which is Ninja Gaiden does not play well.
I mean, I feel like Ninja Gaiden played fine for the time.
Look.
Which Ninja Gaiden are we talking about? The original or the remake?
Original.
Yeah, like, I mean, the original two were great for the time.
Was fine. I mean, it was stupid hard.
It was stupid hard because your controls were terrible, though. Like, you had no air control.
Fixed jumps were a thing.
Yeah. I mean, we were used to that.
I mean, that was kind of every game back then.
Yeah. Like, it was just stupid hard because it was stupid hard.
Like, I think of it as the Castlevania jumps, but Ghouls and Goblins, Ninja Gaiden, even more recent stuff like the Prinny game, they just control like that.
Yeah, being able to control your jump in the air, that was out of the ordinary.
I mean, Mario had it.
Mario. That's pretty much all I can think of. I guess Metroid. Yeah.
And which of the games in the last 30 seconds that we've mentioned have withstood this test of time?
Ninja Gaiden got a remake. It's obviously well loved.
It is with plenty of nostalgia, but people still play Mario 3.
I mean, I'm amped for Ninja Gaiden to come out on the Switch thingy, and it's not. I think it's a December title. I used to love that game.
I mean, I would absolutely replay the original Ninja Gaiden. Maybe I would finally actually freaking beat it. Probably not.
Ninja Gaiden and I have like a very special relationship because like I used to go to Colorado with my cousins, and they had a crazy conversion van that we had a Nintendo hooked up in, and before we actually left Oklahoma, I decided to buy a new game. So I bought Ninja Gaiden, and all the way to Colorado and all the way back, we figured out how to beat the damn game. And like I think we had just entered Oklahoma again coming back when we beat the original game, and we were kind of passing it off when one of us got stuck, and it was a fun memory for me. So, but anyway, continue.
Anyways, it becomes a cool like Metroidvania when you have to like. It basically transforms into go find all of the things, go solve all of these puzzles, which has you retracing various areas and trying to collect items that give you new movement capabilities. And obviously, I'm a super huge mark for this because I like Metroidvanias a lot. But it is a game about time travel and repeating myths, and I kept waiting for it to do the thing where it turned kind of super pretentious like Evoland 2 did, but it actually ends with the character who is from the past, who's been sort of like guiding you along this entire journey. One of the things that you can do is you can always talk to them. They're the shopkeeper, you talk to them, and one of the things you can ask them in every level is, do you have any stories for me? And they always tell these like sort of takes on some sort of classic morality tale with a twist or a different moral or a different something. And they're always like they're really good writing. They always crack me up on some level. But at the very end, it like sort of fades away into this moment where you start to realize that these stories are the lead writer's like voice coming through directly, and it makes it abundantly clear like he's telling his own story about how he got into game design and how like the struggles he overcame to get there and all of the people who helped him on his way. And like at the end it starts cutting out to like pop up thank you messages to the various other developers of the game. And it was really, really personal and affecting and like peeling back the fourth wall to let you hear from the person who's doing all of this writing directly in a really disarming way that I really appreciated. And then immediately after that, it got me to thinking about sort of the entire story of the beginner's guide and how maybe like trying to read too much into these deep affecting stories, like this felt like what I wanted the beginner's guide to be before it decided to be a twist and betray my trust and all of that. But it was a really like moving moment for me, and I really appreciated it. And I kind of enjoy getting that direct glimpse into the designer while I'm playing the game that they've obviously spent so much time working on.
So I remember you, before we started recording, you said you wanted to compare and contrast this with Getting Over It.
Well, I mean, you know how I was just talking about how Ninja Gaiden's an intensely frustrating game that we remember better than it is? I'm also playing Getting Over It with Ben Foddy. If you aren't familiar,
yourself.
I still don't understand why you're doing this thing.
It's really fun, actually. It's like there is something
I don't believe you.
Well, I mean, the joke I was making the other day is that it's kind of like doing playing the video game equivalent of Towers of Hanoi, only every subsequent layer is a little bit harder. And then when you have to redo all of your steps from before, that happens because as soon as you fail on that new attempt, you go all the way back to the beginning.
You're not selling this.
But what that means, so that's the thing that people say, and it's like, oh, why would you ever play this game? But what it does mean is that if you get back up and you try again, what you discover is you're getting better. Like I'm actually able to reliably get through areas that legitimately took me hours of attempts to get through. And I'm just like, oh, I just know how to do this now. I am getting very good at understanding the physics and mechanics of this silly little hammer.
I mean, that part kind of sounds like me playing Mega Man.
And so I get to some new obstacle, I fail, go all the way back to the beginning, and then I get to like breeze my way through some of the earlier stuff that I was absolutely frustrated about. It's also, but what I compare it to with The Messenger is just the way that the author, Bennett Foddy in this case, is communicating to you. And this is again a game designer talking directly to you, the player, as you are going through here. And like talking about the idea of game design and specifically building Unity games with like the asset store and sort of what the idea of building games by like purchased assets does to a culture. It's really interesting. Like this is, if you didn't want Beginner's Guide to devolve into a horror game, this is probably close to that, but maybe it's also me not learning the lessons of Beginner's Guide.
Honestly, the thing you're describing sounds a lot like the experience of playing a traditional roguelike. Like, not a roguelite, a game that does not provide you with any persistent progress, like, say, Risk of Rain.
Yeah, and I can see that, except, well, my issue with Risk of Rain is I don't see the gains that I see with Getting Over It. Like, with Getting Over It, the first time I solve something is probably 2 to 3 hours worth of attempts. And then the next time I try and do it, it's like, oh, it took me 30 minutes to do. And then the next time I do it, it's like down to 15 minutes. And then the next time I'm actually just flying through.
My experience on Risk of Rain was I died at the first boss. And before that, it was I died before the first boss spawns, before I even find the teleporter on the first level. And then eventually, without really any numeric improvements, I can go through and I can beat the game. Like, there is some element of me getting better rather than me unlocking things. Because when I picked up the copy on the PS4, I was able to, and Switch also, start with the commando and just beat the game straight out from the start.
So I get that. I guess my issue with Risk of Rain is each attempt at that has a minimum amount of like commitment. I have to spend 40 minutes working on this, like to see whether or not I'm going to succeed or not. Bennett Foddy has a much faster feedback loop to that, and that's why I enjoyed it.
Well, true. You just said you spent hours on early obstacles.
Yeah, but like each attempt at that obstacle is like 30 seconds. I just fail a whole bunch. Like my repetition pattern is a lot faster.
I think that's the part where that much failure is not enjoyable to me.
Yeah, I mean, this sounds like why I quit playing Super Meat Boy.
But that's the thing. I think for me, I don't mind if I have a whole bunch of failure if it happens very, very quickly for me.
Oh yeah, no, like rapid failure without noticeable change just feels like I'm grinding my face against a wall.
Yes.
Whereas like in a situation like Risk of Rain, like it feels like it takes longer each time for me to get to a point where I just can't succeed. And like and that amount of time now that I am suddenly able to stay alive feels like progress.
I think this is a pretty consistent thing in what I like and what I don't like. Like, this is also why I like games of Magic so much more than I like minis games, because I can discover whether or not I was good at Magic in 10 to 15 minutes versus a minis game where I have to wait like 2 hours to figure that out. And being able to iterate and improve upon fast iterations is really enjoyable for me.
Yeah, whereas I think for me, it's like I get to this point where I feel like I am making no progress and I'm getting no gameplay out of it. But something like Ori and the Blind Forest is probably something you enjoyed considerably more because, like, from what I remember, each individual fail condition didn't set you back super far.
I absolutely adored Ori and the Blind Forest. And maybe because, for similar reasons, like, I failed a whole bunch, but then I was like, oh, by the end of this, I feel super awesome about myself. I see how much I've improved over all of these iterations, and also I feel like I'm actually flying.
Whereas Monster Hunter World, for example, can take you 45 minutes to fail.
Yeah, that did not feel good. It's a good thing I didn't fail much at Monster.
I am back up to a severe failure condition that I haven't even attempted yet.
Which is?
You gonna take a wild guess, Ash?
Nergy?
Oh, God, no.
Are you at HR 49?
Yes, I am.
Have you considered picking up a light bow gun?
I actually picked up some light bow guns from Culve. But yeah, no, I'm
Seriously,
up to
that
tempered
makes that
Kieran.
fight so easy. So easy.
But in a similar situation, like Ash was talking about when he picked up Risk of Rain on the PS4, like the amount of time it took me to get back to where I was on Monster Hunter World was so shortened. Like, I knew the mechanics. I mean, I did double Basil's first time, did Nergi first time. It took me a little bit to do Xeno just because I hate that fight. It is so long.
That said, sometimes I just have to quit this game when I take a big enough setback.
How do you feel about Super Meat Boy?
I felt the controls were very clunky about it, but
Super Meat Boy gives you a ton of air control.
Too much air control.
I mean, okay, how do you feel about 1001 Spikes?
Oh, I love it.
Okay, yeah. Like, there's a theme here. You like meat grinder games.
I mean, I also really love the letter V 6 times.
Yeah, but you don't die a lot in that game anymore.
Yeah, but
I know
I
you
used
don't.
to. I still die, like, I think I haven't done a sub 50 deaths run of that.
Yes, but at this point, it's because you're trying to do nonsense strategies, not because you need them to get through the room.
That's fair. But yeah, like, I do like meat grinders. Also, this is incidentally why I'm never allowed to be a raid leader.
Because you will absolutely grind down the willpower of a raid.
Well, I don't know if you remember this.
No, I was not raiding with you.
Yeah, he was not raiding in SWTOR.
Oh, okay. But yeah.
I did not raid at all in that game, so I did not experience Kodra the raid leader, destroyer of souls.
Yeah, there's a boss called Soa.
So it was awful.
It was a terrible boss fight, but I wanted to beat it. And yeah, I'm no longer allowed to be a raid leader, and it's good to know that limitation of myself. Because I absolutely will be like, yeah, let's do this again. That was awesome. Come on. And everyone else is like, no, stop. I hate this game. I hate everything about it. Why are you doing this to us? Because I don't know when to stop. Getting over it with Bennett Foddy thankfully provides you with good answers on when to stop. When you lose all of your progress and you might as well just start over.
I mean, that does sound like a good time to stop. I don't know why you would then start again later.
I don't know, mastery or something? Some deep part of me finds incredible satisfaction from this.
Are you familiar with the Pantheon of Hollow Nest?
Oh, that is not something that gives you quick turnaround.
You could just, fight Pure Vessel in the Hall of Gods. That would be pretty quick. That'll be probably very quick.
I will remind you, I did beat Nightmare King Grim.
Sure.
And that was also that exact same methodology. Like, I'm pretty sure I ground my face against him for 3 hours until I got it. Also, I'm looking for something other than Hollow Knight right now. I've played a lot of Hollow Knight. Like, that's ultimately where getting over it came from, is like, I want to play a game other than Hollow Knight. What game other than Hollow Knight can I play?
I'm sure there are other games on Steam that you own that you have not beaten that you could play that would be more fun than getting over it.
I don't know about that.
Here, I'll give you one. Have you played Time Spinner yet?
I haven't. I will try this. I am playing some Dead Cells.
You picked it up for Switch?
No, Pam gave it to me on Steam.
I feel like La Mulana may be a thing for you as well.
La Mulana... So I actually didn't enjoy Spelunky, and I don't know why.
Those games are not related in any way.
They aren't?
No, they maybe kind of look sort of similar, but no. Totally different game.
Okay.
La Mulana is a prettied up release of a freeware indie Japanese game. Sort of like Cave Story. Except La Mulana does not like La Mulana has opinions on your ability to, survive and various other things, but it is Metroidvania-like, sort of.
Ooh, I wonder if it's the good kind of Metroidvania.
You mean more like Castlevania and less like Metroid?
Except, again, more like Metroid movement, more like Castlevania combat.
I don't have an answer for you there.
But yeah.
I have not played this thing because everything I've heard about it is that it's very rough and kind of will sapping, so that feels like that fits right down your alley.
I do think that getting over it is better than you might assume.
You have not sold me on it in everything you've said just now.
That's fair. Maybe I'm just a certain kind of person.
You do have a specific kind of game that you like. You like games that are 12 sads out of 10, and you also like games that want to hurt you repeatedly. So speaking of hurting us repeatedly, fresh news.
This is not hurtful news.
Obsidian and inExile have been bought by Microsoft.
Maybe they'll release something?
Which is probably
Obsidian
really good for those
things.
studios.
Obsidian has released lots of things, just none of them sold well at all. So here we are.
I feel like this is really good for those studios, but is bad for my frustrations because I hate dealing with the freaking Windows Store.
Maybe they'll not release things on the Windows Store.
I sincerely doubt it, given that Undead Labs used to release stuff on Steam until Microsoft bought them.
While true, some of the exclusive stuff has made it off of the Windows Store, because Alan Wake, because it didn't sell crap on the Windows Store.
But Alan Wake was an old iteration of this. That was on the Games for Windows store, not the
No, that was on
Windows
the
10
Windows store. That was on the Windows 10 store. It just didn't sell anything. Although, to be completely fair, it was a Microsoft exclusive third-party game, not a first-party game. I don't think any of their first-party games have left the Windows Store yet. We'll see if this continues, I guess. Or whenever that comes out. I don't know when the last time we heard about that is. What's supposed to be coming to Steam.
Ori 2?
Yeah. But Microsoft has a better track record of not closing things than, say, EA does. So this is probably good for both Obsidian and inExile.
It's probably bad for Obsidian still, though? The fact that they do not get along at all with Bethesda.
Yeah, the likelihood that we will get another game like New Vegas is probably non-existent.
The likelihood of that collaboration with anyone is quite low. But yeah.
I guess my thing with Obsidian is I feel like they're much better at doing stories, telling continuations, doing follow-ups than anything else I know about.
Pillars 2 is better than Pillars 1 for this reason.
I also kind of feel like they're really good at writing stories, but less good at making games.
Tyranny was great.
Yeah. Well, and Tyranny is the only thing I can name of theirs that is all their intellectual property.
Pillars of Eternity was their Kickstarter game, and Pillars of Eternity 2 is the sequel to that came out earlier this year.
Right, but Tyranny was released using the Pillars engine, right?
Yep.
So, that's what I mean. They have always had issues with bugs in the initial release of their games. Dating back to Black Isle. So by the time Tyranny was released, they'd probably ironed out most of the bugs with the Pillars engine.
Tyranny also had a publisher. Technically so did Pillars 2.
Tyranny is such a great game. It does not make sense really to have a sequel to it.
It kind of does.
It does.
It could, but
it really kind of does.
It definitely makes sense
that game to exist.
Yeah, if at a minimum, I want more games set in that world.
Right. I want to know more about that world. They gave us a really interesting setting. Hell, I wouldn't mind a D&D's source book for the Tyranny setting.
That's never happened. Josh Sawyer was working on a Pillars RPG source book, but who knows how that's going to go.
So, other fresh news, ActiBliz had an earnings call, and apparently they consider that Destiny 2 Forsaken underperformed.
I didn't buy it, because I think I'm done with Destiny 2 for now.
I guess the reason why I put this on here is, I don't know what not underperforming is. Because, on the console, they were leading the NPD sales charts for like September with Forsaken. They like
what else was in NPD for September?
I don't know. I mean, like, but they also like. So there's Destiny Tracker is a community site that basically tracks like a bunch of things about the community. And immediately following the launch of Forsaken, they went from like 9.8 million active players to a little bit over 12 million active players, and like they've added on like another 1.5 million since the BlizzCon announcement that like all Battle.net player users are getting a free copy of Destiny base game. Like, it seems to be performing well to me. It's in its best state ever
no,
for the fans.
They were number 8 on September NPD after Spider-Man and Odyssey and a bunch of other stuff.
Well, was it August then? Because there was one of them that they were leading the sales for console.
Mario Odyssey?
No, Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Oh, okay. So I was baffled for a second there.
And no, they didn't do so hot in August either.
Well, then hell, I don't know.
I mean, I'm sure that's not even the relevant metric. The relevant metric is how much they forecasted they would sell and then how much they actually sold.
I mean, I'm sure they wouldn't do something foolish like forecast that every player of Destiny 2 is going to buy this expansion, because that would be silly.
I guess what concerns me is, like, legitimately Destiny is in the best condition that it's been for the players, period. Like, it's now eclipsed the best of Destiny 1 as far as, like, the gameplay loop and what's available and things like that. Things seem really balanced. Crucible feels good. Gambit feels good. Strikes feel good. Like, the game is in a really good state. And my fear is because the game did not sell as well as they thought it was going to, they are going to do something stupid to screw up the game.
Like, they released Destiny 2 in its launch date?
Yeah, it needed about another half year to incubate.
Yeah, but I'm sure for those investors, they were like, that's another X amount of dollars and we're not seeing any return on that investment.
I don't know, like
This is why games companies shouldn't be publicly owned.
Yes.
But that's a completely separate topic.
Yeah, I mean, but I also feel like the whole Diablo announcement feeds into this as well. Like, they are doing the thing that the stock or the shareholders want them to do, not maybe what's good for the brand.
I mean, I sort of disagree on, well, I mean, only sort of, though, because one, that's correct. Two, getting into mobile games is not bad for the brand.
No, I don't mean getting into mobile games is bad for the brand. I just mean the way in which they announced it without having anything for the core fans.
I don't really think we need to rehash that one again.
No. I mean, but it's a similar setup. Like, I am concerned this is the same company that now says Destiny 2 is not doing well, when from a player standpoint, Destiny 2 is doing better than it's ever done.
Well, is there actually that many people playing it?
I mean, it's like 12.8 million, something like that, which that's what the current active population looks like according to Destiny Tracker.
What metric does it use to track that?
It's looking at any kind of activities that are being run. So if you're just idling in the game, you're probably not counted in that number. But if you have participated in public events or patrols or crucible matches, strikes, it like basically tracks all of the logs through their API. Because like Bungie has an API that allows you to look up everything about the players. So I mean, it's along the lines of Steam Spy, in that before Steam Spy got broken, in that it's like not 100% accurate, but like it may be undercounting a few people.
I guess the other question is how it's doing in microtransactions, because that's how WoW makes most of its money now.
Yeah, that's true. Does anybody buy silver?
I mean, no. I mean, there's not really a point. Like, I will sometimes do this thing when something cool is available, but yeah, I mean, like, in general, you're getting tokens fast enough to not actually need to do this thing. But that's honestly part of what makes it feel not horrible. I mean, they may also be stuck in a situation like they were, like Diablo 3 was, where like they grossly miscalculated one monetization scheme that they kind of bet the farm on, and maybe they don't have a great option for doing something else. But it also kind of seems like a catch-22. Like, if you monetize the shit out of something, it feels horrible and the players will go away. If you make the game feel good and feel like time spent is rewarded, it's not as monetized. And then I guess like the players are not enough to make up for it.
I'd like to point out that a lot of people play and like Warframe.
It's true. And they're apparently making enough money to, keep adding new stuff.
Yes, but I feel like Warframe's goal line for what is enough money is vastly different than what Activision Blizzard's goal line for what is enough money.
It's probably true.
And I guess that's the thing that concerns me, is like there's a lot of unrealistic expectations of how much money you can drain from the games market. And it could just be a situation where investors do not understand the nature of gamers, and like they're looking at things like Fortnite, and a gamer that is attracted to playing Fortnite is a vastly different gamer that's attracted to playing like Mass Effect, for example, or any other game that is not a competitive shooty game.
I mean,
what?
Fortnite,
You mean gamers aren't a uniform population?
I mean, Fortnite is kind of like WoW in that it makes people who play one game.
Right, it
Yeah,
does.
people who play lots of video games.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that only play Fortnite. I mean, and similar, there were a lot of players that only ever played Minecraft. Like
There are still a lot of players who only play Minecraft.
But there are these outliers that you cannot draw any conclusions about the majority from.
But I think for investors, they're all chasing that big score.
I mean, I feel like maybe games are not the market for them then.
I mean,
How can you say that? Fortnite was a big score. PUBG was a big score.
yeah, and again, for every PUBG, there are 100 not PUBGs.
Radical Heights. Both people even remember what Radical Heights was.
But hey, I'm just glad I'm getting back Hellgate London.
I don't understand your fascination with that game.
The game
I
that won't die.
freaking love Hellgate London. I don't understand why nobody doesn't like it. I've been playing a lot of action role-playing games in an attempt to kind of like globally test everything out to see if there's a possible Diablo replacement. And like right now, honestly, Torchlight Frontiers looks like the next best thing. But I was playing a bunch of stuff last week, and at Ash's suggestion,
I am sad that didn't work out because that game looks real promising.
it does look promising, but like I don't know, like it's proof that one flaw can mar the entire game.
Which game are we talking about?
Lost Epoch,
Okay.
which is a Kickstarter ARPG that's got some time travel elements to it, and it's got honestly an interesting character system to where you have base classes that then can morph into like 3 different subclasses. And honestly, like the thing is it's super alpha right now, so who knows what it's going to be like in a year. But right now, left mouse button is move, right mouse button is attack, and there's no way to move and attack at the same time. And that may sound like minimal, but it's shocking how unfluid that game feels because
if you are
of
used to any ARPG on PC since Diablo 2, it's going to feel real weird.
Yeah, it just does not feel good at all. Yeah, so I have not made it very too far into it. It also feels very alpha. It's got a lot of assets that are probably not final assets. I would like to see it in a year. But of the alpha ARPGs, I feel like Wolcen is further along than Lost Epoch, like significantly further along. I also played a lot of Path of Exile, and that game is doing a lot of interesting things, but I don't know. Like, there's just something that I'm missing in what makes that enjoyable to all the people that really like playing it.
We went back and played Diablo 2 2 years ago. What did you think about Diablo 2?
It's the same thing going on. Like, honestly, there's a lot of games that are spiritual successors to Diablo 2. I feel like Grim Dawn also falls into this category. And
I feel like Grim Dawn has evolved at least a little bit since Diablo 2, and I do not feel that about Path of Exile.
Well, so the problem that I have with Grim Dawn and Path of Exile is they are both really slow-paced most of the time, but then have a nasty habit of occasionally deluging you with a ton of shit. But most of the time, yeah, there's nothing it's not very fast-paced. Like, from what I've seen, there's not a lot of movement. I finally got a leap in Path of Exile, so that at least helps a little bit, but I don't know, like, there's Diablo 3 does a thing, and I liked what it did from the Diablo 2 model, and I've not really found anything that feels quite like that. The closest so far has been Torchlight 2, which I've been playing probably the most of. And Torchlight 2 is still a really cool game. The other thing that I have been doing is forcing myself to play a bunch of mobile games. And it's like, okay, it's the whole Guild Wars 2 thing. Like, I threw myself at Guild Wars 2 over and over and over until I finally started to understand what people liked about that game. So I have been playing a bunch of mobile games, trying to understand what people like about them. And there is a niche of mobile games that I find so bizarre.
Clickers?
Games that play themselves. Like,
Clickers?
I have been... I'm guessing.
Did you ever experience Cookie Clicker on PC?
Yeah, like I got in there long enough to get to the first joke, and then I checked the hell out because, like, no, okay, I'm done with this. So no, I mean, Cookie Clicker was not my thing.
It definitely spawned an entire genre of games.
Yeah, like I mean, I know, like, there's Idle Heroes,
some of which are better than others.
I guess what's weird about it, though, is it's not. I'm not even talking about idle game. I'm talking about games that are perfectly capable of being played, that play themselves. So I have been playing Lineage 2 Revolution because I wanted to try a bunch of MMOs on mobile games. And in the grand scheme of things, I'm weirdly enjoying this game, but there is an auto-questing mode.
Dragalia Lost has an auto mode too.
It's different, though. Like Dragalia Lost runs through a map, and then, like, it makes sense, okay? And it usually takes, like, a minimal path through the map. This is, like, literally going through an MMO quest on autopilot. So, like, if it asks you to gather 3 sprigs of catnip, it goes around and moves to where they're at, and then gathers 1, then gathers 2, then gathers 3, and then autopilots back to the quest giver. So, like, it's a level of automation that I'm not used to, and the same thing happens in NetEase's game Crusaders of Light. You can absolutely just keep clicking the auto button and have it go do the things for you. And I get, like, to some extent why that's, especially on, like, a repetitive farming type thing. Like, I will absolutely do the what's the of power thing from Dragalia.
Avenue to Power.
Yeah, like, I auto quest that every single night because, like, it's a no-brainer.
I tend to multiplayer that one.
Well, right now I'm multiplayering the raid boss, but yeah, like, I'll usually multiplayer the highest one I can do on that one. But, like, just to grind out 5 quests, a lot of times I'll just do Avenue of Power 5 times in a row on autopilot. So I can absolutely see the I don't know, like, the use for using it in terms of maintenance gaming, but it's just so bizarre that, like, this entire game can be played just by occasionally clicking a button.
Did you ever play Progress Quest?
No.
Progress Quest is another is one of the it's that it was absolutely meant as a parody of like EverQuest and the like, people played it seriously. It plays itself. Like you once you've created your character, you just start it going, and you don't have to do anything.
When you say played it seriously,
Like,
what do you mean by that?
Like, kept it running as much as possible and tried to find ways to ensure that their character like climbed the leaderboards, because of course there were leaderboards.
Leaderboards that were basically, how long has this game been running?
Yes.
So one of the things that's also weird about Lineage 2 Revolution is I went through the whole process of setting up ADB to where I could play my phone on my PC, just for the hell of it. And I noticed today that even though I did nothing to set this up, when mirroring Lineage 2 Revolution through ADB to my PC, it's aware of what WASD does and a mouse and a keyboard. So, like, it apparently has all the hooks for, like, a PC game in the Android port of the game and is aware of, like, what those keys being pressed do. So, like, you can run around and play it perfectly fine when not doing it on autopilot with, WASD and actually play it like a real game. It's so bizarre to me. And I remember people saying that they were afraid that, like, Diablo Immortal would be another autopilot MMO, and I didn't really know what they meant. But, like, I've encountered several of these now that are like, you're playing an MMO, but you're just going to occasionally click a button to accept the next quest or to accept an award, and then you're off to the races and it's questing for you. It does, to some extent, kind of floor me that, like, Crusaders of Light is effectively a WoW clone on your phone, and it does kind of floor me that we have reached a point where that's not an unreasonable thing. I remember playing, like, a super kludgy Game Boy graphics clone of Diablo on my Palm Pilot and thinking that was cool as hell when it was, like, getting non-existent frame rates. It just floors me that mobile phones have reached that point. Anyway, do we have anything else major to talk about?
I'm going to keep shilling Crosscode until everyone has played it.
I guess we can talk about that a little, because I'm in the Crosscode.
That probably actually means you played it more than I have.
Okay, what the hell is Crosscode?
Crosscode is an action RPG that wants to make you believe it looks like an SNES game, but it's a action RPG about an MMO.
And the structure of the game feels like an MMO. And boy, can you get lost just like an MMO that you're picking up after a couple of days and you don't really have the greatest of quest logs. Boy, can you get lost.
Yes, you can.
Is there also why is all this garbage in my inventory?
Yes, but your inventory is, as far as I can tell, not limited, which actually kind of makes it worse. As far as I can tell, they want to give you a lot of, quite frankly, unnecessary side quests. It sort of reminds me of Xenoblade in this way, in that you have the main story, and you can just mostly go do the main story when you start out.
I feel like you would miss a decent amount if you don't do some of the side quests.
Sure.
All of the boss fights are really cool.
The presentation in that game is really cool. It's sort of Golden Sun-like in that occasionally you have puzzles, but you usually solve these puzzles by using these various bouncing balls that your character can shoot.
I feel like that's not necessarily reflected in the core gameplay loop, which is part of my problem. It sounds like because I've gotten all the way past, like, after you get out of the tutorial and get into the first zone.
Right.
I did not find there were that many of those puzzles.
I don't know. There are definitely more later.
Okay. I am in the Frost Town right now, so I don't know how far I am in that game.
Okay. I know you get the fire element in a dungeon shortly after that. I haven't done this since the game actually released. Definitely been a bit distracted on the gaming front lately.
I've been all over the freaking place.
Like, I've been play a little bit of that, a little bit of Deltarune, a lot of Gundam Breaker 3, a lot of Xenoblade 2, some random Pokemon Mystery Dungeon for who knows what reason.
I went back and was playing The Division and finally actually hit the level cap. I don't know why.
Because you're hoping that you'll like the sequel?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I just, like, I felt like I've been all over the place game-wise. Like right now I'm pretty much doing a single run of Culve every single night for a shot at some weapons and some more of the little tickets to get the cosmetic set. I've got a bunch of Glimstones already, so thankfully that's not going to be an issue.
That's good.
Like, I don't have the Elder Dragon gems that go along with the Glimstones to make the gear, so like I can farm those at a later date after the event is over. So I'm not super worried about that. I got a bunch of weapons that are nice. I have a purple quality rank 7 paralyzed longsword, which is pretty great.
I think the best heavy bowgun is not actually top quality. I think it's 37 or whatever it is. I know there's the Diablos based one, which is Diablos based one, which is very, very good, but has some issues. And then there's the Great Jaggers based one, which is amazingly good for no good reason.
I've been getting a ton of what's the rotting dragon? Yeah. I've been getting a ton of Culve weapons that are based on Valhazak, so they have like Elder Seal and Dragon Damage. And
I am not familiar with the weapons that came out in like basically Wave 2. Because the second time Cool came to console, she had a slightly different set of weapons in addition to the ones before.
I'm getting weapons I never saw from Culve Wave 1, so I'm wondering if now that it's on PC, they've got like the expanded loot table. So Probably. They didn't actually give us like the original console loot table.
It's likely.
Yeah, I have this core loop of like, I play a little Monster Hunter, then I play a little Destiny, and then I tend to play a little bit of an ARPG, and then occasionally I piddle around on a Hunter in World of Warcraft, and I don't know, some combination of other things. And John Madden.
John Madden. No,
I'm thinking of the Druid combat, John Madden. But yeah, it's I don't know. Like it's funny that you say you're going through this too. I thought it was just me. Like I know come
Wednesday.
Wednesday I'll be playing a lot of Fallout 76. So like I don't really want to get too deep into something else.
Yeah, I also know this.
I'm unlikely to be there, but the Spyro remake come out on Tuesday, so I'll be stuck with my PS4 for a bit.
Well, and Hellgate London comes out on the 15th.
Let's go.
And I know
it comes out on Friday also.
I know you're all waiting on Hellgate London. Anyway. Like last note, if you have a Battle.net account and you do not have Destiny 2, log into your Battle.net account and accept the free gift, because I think it's good through the 18th. So like, you have a little bit of time to grab it, and you might as well grab a free copy of Destiny 2.
The base game is fairly solid for the story.
The base game is better than when we played it now, because like there's been a lot of quality of life world changes that make it easier to get through the base content. Grenades actually do real damage now.
Gasp. That's why I stopped playing Sunsinger, actually. Because throwing around suns was no longer useful.
The new classes are really fun. I finally maxed out the fire class. So like you can
spin like a top.
I can spin like a top, or I can jump up and slam down a hammer and send a shockwave of fire across the way. I can also throw my hammer and pick it up for fun and profit and throw it again. That feels just broken. Like, you throw your hammer and it lands on the ground after it's hit a target. You run over, and if you get there fast enough, you can pick it up again and throw it again. So it's basically like knife juggler, but the knives are just laying on the ground, and you can pick them up. Okay, we should probably wrap this thing up. Hopefully you enjoy the show, and hopefully Tam will be back next week. Hopefully Grace will be less busy and she'll be back too. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will see you next time. Good night.
Later.
Good night.
See you.